This week on Jersey Matters, vaccine cards that show you got your COVID-19 shot may be required in some states to go on a plane or go out to a restaurant. But one New Jersey state senator wants to make certain that doesn't happen here. A South Jersey doctor is on a mission to make certain the homeless get vaccinated too. The cicada invasion is coming, and it might bring out some dangerous snakes. And a food truck for dogs. Welcome to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Mendte. This is what a vaccination card would look like. It's your health pass to go to the movies, to go to a restaurant, or to get on a plane. Governor Murphy says he kind of likes the idea. But Ocean County Republican State Senator Jim Holzapfel has introduced legislation to make certain vaccine cards are not required in New Jersey. Senator, thanks so much for agreeing to give us some of your time today. The topic on the table are the vaccine passports.
Right.
Maybe we should start with your understanding of what the vaccine passports would do and how they'd be used, if they are indeed used in New Jersey.
In my humble opinion, no one in the state of New Jersey should be forced to decide a medical decision, in this case, whether or not they are going to get a shot or their kids are going to get a shot, based on the fact that the government is saying, if you don't, we're going to discriminate against you. You won't be able to get into certain places. You might not be able to go to work. You might not be able to go to school. You might not be able to go to university, etc. And at this point in history, in 2021, I don't think we know enough about COVID and its consequences that government should be in a position of telling people, you will get an inoculation or else these terrible consequences will occur. And that's the purpose of the bill.
And the vaccine passport, I'm sure a lot of people know about it already, but it is going to be a passport that's going to be on your phone, or it's going to be a card or a piece of paper that allows you to get into certain things. It's proof that you were vaccinated, that you got the vaccine. And I guess my question to you is, first, you mentioned unemployment. You mentioned employment first is one of the things that you mentioned. And as I understand it from most employment attorneys, that an employer can insist that their employees get vaccinated because the federal government says that they have to provide a healthy and safe workplace. That is not your understanding?
No, that's correct. So, I do labor work. I do labor work myself. That's correct. Right. The status of the law today, at least if someone asked me my opinion and wanted to pay me for it, I would say, as far as the government in particular, that you can mandate that there be an inoculation. But if you'll notice, go around the state, and I'll stand corrected, most places are not doing that because they don't want to put themselves in a position of telling people that you must get something done to you medically. If you don't do it, you're not going to be able to work. Now, we've seen, I think, reported anyway, let's take Rutgers. Rutgers says, all the kids, you want to come back to school? You have to be inoculated. Does the staff have to be inoculated? No. Do the professors have to be inoculated? No. So why? Why is there a separation between the kids and the professors? Now, is that a union issue? There's a lot of things, I'm sure, that are working their way around here. But at the end of the day, to me, I don't think government should be in a position to tell people, certainly with Johnson & Johnson's issue that just happened, that you must take your kids and get them inoculated, or you must take your other family members and get them inoculated for you to be able to function in this state. You want to get into a restaurant, you want to get in a sporting event, you want to go to work. The answer, in my humble opinion, is you're getting the shot because you're making the decision that it's the right thing for you to do. I've gotten both shots. I'm 77 years old. It was an easy decision. I got 6 grandchildren. Have I told my son or daughter that their kids must go get the shot, or it's, what? No, it's their decision because the consequences are going to be theirs. They're not going to be my consequences. If something goes wrong with the vaccination down the road, who are they going to look to blame? I just don't think that government should be able to step in and say, at this juncture in the history of what's been going on, that you must have the shot for you to be able to do any life functions. I mean, look at New Jersey. We've done the most. I mean, it's so stringent. Lockdown across the board. Our numbers are no better than any place. As a matter of fact, they're worse in some situations. I just saw something the other day, we're number 3 or 4 worst, and et cetera, et cetera. And meanwhile, in Florida, Texas,
the
other
worst
places.
Mortality rate in the country. The worst mortality rate in the country is in New York.
So has it been working? I mean, how's this working out? You know, to use the quote.
Let me give you one more argument, the greater good argument, that we would never reach herd immunity unless people are required to get the vaccine. So would never, ever beat COVID-19 unless we start forcing people to get the vaccine. And certainly a vaccine passport would be one way. And by the way, the Supreme Court did weigh in on this about 85 years ago with smallpox and said states do, in a health emergency, can require people to get the vaccine.
Yeah. Well, first of all, prove that to me at this point. Right now, as far as I'm told, people still want the vaccination. They can't get it. They still want to get the shot, and they're waiting in lines, and the computers aren't working right, and on and on and on. Let's get to a point where when I drive by down here in Tom River North, I don't see hundreds of cars. People want the shot. Let's get to a point where they call up and say, you know what, we've got to 75%. And then maybe we can get ingenious and say things like an employer can say, hey, you know what? If you get the shot, you get $1,000 pay bonus. Hey, if you get the shot, if something happens to you, COVID related, we're not going to take your sick days. We're not going to take your personal days to burn those while you're out. We're going to let you keep those days, and you're going to be out on a special because you have gotten a shot. Have we done anything like that? I don't think so.
Sir, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Hey, it's a pleasure.
Republican State Senator Jim Holzapfel from New Jersey's 10th Legislative District. Still to come on Jersey Matters, making oil and gas more environmentally friendly in New Jersey. That's next. Welcome back to Jersey Matters. The oil and gas companies of America are under attack. The president and several in Congress say they want to get rid of fossil fuels over the next decade. But Mike Rinna, the CEO of South Jersey and Elizabethtown Gas, says not so fast.
Sarah, thanks so much for agreeing to do this. It's fascinating what you're doing, and we'll get to that in a moment, because natural gas, fossil fuel companies are under attack. They actually there's a segment of the population that wants to eliminate them, and I understand the reasons for that. So what you're doing, is that a reaction to what might be coming?
Yeah, it certainly is. I think New Jersey was probably one of the first states to kind of come out with a more what I would call aspirational plan for how it was going to consume energy going forward, and put a real big emphasis on decarbonization and renewable energy. So what we really did was focus not on the fuel itself, but on what our utilities provide, which is the infrastructure to deliver energy. And so we believe that there's a tremendous amount of value in that infrastructure, and that infrastructure can deliver the clean energy of the future.
So explain exactly what you're doing.
So we've spent several hundreds of millions of dollars over the last 5 years modernizing our infrastructure, replacing all of the vintage bare steel and cast iron main. That has a safety and reliability component to it. It also has a significant environmental component to it, because it allows us to reduce the amount of fugitive methane that's released, because the vintage pipes were a little more leak prone. These are state-of-the-art pipes, very low incidences of leaks. The other thing they do is, because they're predominantly plastic, they allow us to blend other fuels with the natural gas to bring down the carbon intensity of the natural gas. And that's kind of the first phase was modernizing the infrastructure. The second phase is going to be investments in decarbonization. So lowering the carbon intensity of the actual gas stream itself.
Do you believe that there will be a time when we won't be reliant on fossil fuel, or will that always be a component? Is it a fantasy to think that's going to happen?
Oh, you're asking a gas guy.
Purposely.
Yeah, I think there'll always be a role for fossil fuels. They're critical for reliability, particularly even the more we electrify, the more you're going to need gas to smooth out those periods that of interruption that you get with renewable energy sources, right? The sun doesn't always shine, wind's always not blowing. It's intermittent energy. Battery storage is one way to smooth out that, but another is through natural gas.
The infrastructure that you already have, that you were explaining a moment ago, can it be used to deliver something that's not natural gas to homes?
It can, and we're already making those investments. So the first and most immediate technology is renewable natural gas, and that's taking the methane from food waste, from wastewater treatment facilities, from landfills, from dairy farms, and you run it through an anaerobic digester, and out comes a clean burning gas called renewable natural gas that we can blend right now with our natural gas in our existing infrastructure, and again bring down the carbon intensity of the natural gas. So that's one. The other, I think, more promising future, and the technology is still a ways away, and I think there's going to need to be different pilot projects that happen, but it's pretty advanced in Europe and Asia, is hydrogen and blending hydrogen with the natural gas, again, to bring down that carbon content.
How close are we to being able to use hydrogen?
I think we can certainly use it now. The technology is there. Again, Europe and Asia are using hydrogen. In terms of mass distribution through utility infrastructure, I think you'll start to see blending in the next 5 years, and certainly by 2050. I think the technologies will advance. We'll make whatever necessary investments we have to make in our infrastructure, and I think you'll see a pretty. Again, I mean, I keep overusing the word, but I think you're going to see a very different gas stream in the 10-year time frame.
Yeah, I'm asking a lot of questions about the future and what it's going to be like. Now, let me ask you a question that your customers are going to care about. How will these changes affect them, not only with their delivery system but with the cost?
So from a delivery system, I think, look, the investments that we've made have greatly increased the safety, reliability, and resiliency of our system. So that's a great thing for customers, right? That means on the coldest of days, the gas is flowing and their heater comes on. And I think most of our customers understand and appreciate that in order to make those kind of investments to ensure that type of reliability and resiliency, it comes at a cost. The nice thing about where we are right now from a natural gas perspective is, given the abundancy of natural gas, given the affordability of natural gas, we've been able to make these investments, and we'll be able to continue to make these investments now in decarbonization without impacting customer bills because the cost of gas is so low.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mike Rinna, CEO of South Jersey and Elizabethtown Gas. Still to come on Jersey Matters.
I'm Phil Andrews, and coming up on Jersey Matters, I'll explain how I unexpectedly got my first COVID-19 vaccine.
Good news, everybody in New Jersey over the age of 16 is eligible to get vaccinated for COVID-19 now, and thousands are getting vaccinated up and down the state every day. But some people, you need to go out and give them their shot. Jersey Matters' Phil Andrews tells us about a South Jersey doctor who has made it a mission to make certain everybody who wants a shot gets one.
So, while on my way to cover a story this week, I unexpectedly ended up getting a COVID-19 shot. I'll tell you how I got here a little later. But first, meet Dr. Richard German, director of Rowan Medicine's Neuroskeletal Institute, and someone who has dedicated his life to helping the vulnerable, and has stepped forward during this pandemic to help vaccinate that portion of the population.
So the program is really for patients who are homeless, unstable housing, domestic violence, for patients that are suffering from addiction, and migrant workers. So next thing you know, we had people reaching out to us and said, we want to partner with you. We have farms that we want you to go out to. And then last Monday, a week ago Monday, we were actually in Atlantic City bus terminal, outside in the rain, under tents. And we were able to vaccinate 170 homeless people.
You're helping to end the pandemic.
Right.
So the people who we encounter at the clinic are very thankful. Some of them have chronic medical conditions, and for them this vaccine means a world.
And German, along with his staff and students, vaccinated that group with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which unfortunately was put on hold following cases of blood clots, which of course caused a minor delay in the program.
So you must have been disappointed when Johnson & Johnson pulled the plug on the vaccinations for right now.
Devastated. Devastated because the very next day, that morning, we had 320 migrant workers lined up, ready to get our shot, and we had to turn them away.
It was a little heartbreaking. So we found out the morning of, and it was a lot of scrambling to call people and let them know. But it was definitely disappointing. And we're hoping that maybe it'll be restarted and we could have it again, and continue doing the good work with that.
Now, German was given 2,000 doses of the J&J vaccine, which has an expiration date for the end of May. So to keep things going, the program has switched to the 2-dose Moderna vaccine, which is not necessarily ideal for what they're doing, but still better than nothing.
So the challenge with that is we have to make, it's 2. So I don't have phone numbers. Patients don't have cell phones and smart tablets that we can contact them, like we do if you go to a vaccination center now. All we can do is come back, 3 weeks later and say, we're going to be back again, please show up.
Now, as I was leaving Dr. German's office, he asked me the question.
I assume you got your shot, right?
What's that?
I assume you got your shot, right?
The answer was no. His response, well, let's get you one. And so, here I am, unexpectedly getting my first shot of Moderna, with shot number 2 scheduled in 3 weeks. In Stratford, for Jersey Matters, I'm Phil Andrews.
Thank you, Phil. Coming up next on Jersey Matters.
Coming up next, you'll hear from Chef Mike Monachetti from Sea Isle City's Mike's Seafood, where they work to spread awareness for autism all year round.
Welcome back to Jersey Matters. April is Autism Awareness Month. But Jersey Matters' Kimberly Kravits tells us many families want to spread awareness about those on the spectrum every single day of the year. Kimberly.
Autism means different things to different people. There's no one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to a child on the spectrum. And now, during Autism Awareness Month, we'll introduce you to a couple of families who are impacted by autism all year round.
Every morning, we get up roughly to our alarm clocks. We have 4 of them. There's no such thing as a sleep in here. There's no such thing as a quiet household in the morning.
Meet the Fisher family. All 4 of their children are autistic, and they don't know life any other way.
And with the school being on and off and in school, out of school, that's been the most challenging. because they're used to the routine and it's been disrupted.
Schooling is a huge decision for families with autistic children, as pointed out by the executive director of the Phoenix Center out of Nutley, New Jersey.
Choosing the right school for your child with special needs is really largely about the feel. When you walk into a school, pre-pandemic, of course, you want to feel that everyone is invested. You want to feel that everyone's on the same page.
Every situation is different. Here is another New Jersey family, the Monichettis. 2 of their 4 children are autistic, and through that, they have made quite a difference in their neighborhood over the years.
I believe the Lord gave us 2 autistic children because he knows we would do something about it.
Mike and his wife Jeannie, owners of Mike's Seafood in Sea Isle City, are known by all in their community, not only for their family-run restaurant, but also for their annual Polar Bear Run Walk for Autism.
The city is also a big part of our, of the walk and run, which is mainly Mike. I have much less to do with it than Mike does.
So every Sunday, every summer for the last 12, 13 years, the plane goes down the beach from Wildwood all the way up to Margate saying, support Autism Awareness, thanks Mike's Seafood.
Jeannie and Mike, whose children Kara and Mikey are still in school, tell me that good news could be on the way for disabled students in New Jersey.
There's a bill in front of the governor right now that they're going to extend any kids with special needs who missed so much time this year. They might give them an extra year.
Which would be fantastic.
Yeah,
it really would be nice.
New Jersey has some of the highest rates of autism in the country and oftentimes can be a very sensitive subject.
A lot of people think it's vaccines, some people think it's genetic, some people think it's food, environment. I personally, my father was in the Army and he passed away from Agent Orange, so I think it's in my genes personally. We've never done genetic testing. I mean, we could, but at this point, we don't really feel the need to do that.
It's like, what's the point, Because my dad was in the Army as well. He served in Vietnam.
There's writing on the foot of this T-Rex.
The major concern is that, that New Jersey has one of the highest autism rates in the country, and these children are going to get bigger, and there aren't a lot of opportunities of places for them to work, where to live.
We tried everything.
Yeah, we've done everything.
And the hardest part about it is the communication problem. I mean, you don't know if they're hungry, if they have a toothache, if they need to go to the bathroom, make a stop.
Life with autism can be challenging at every stage, but having a great sense of humor sure helps a family get by. So during the month of April, join the national push to celebrate differences as we work toward a society where those with autism live fully through connection and acceptance. Reporting for Jersey Matters, I'm Kimberly Kravits.
Welcome back to Jersey Matters. I'm Larry Mendte. The cicadas are coming. Some areas of New Jersey are really going to be plagued by the big, noisy bugs. And what's worse, the loud insects attract a dangerous kind of snake. Here's David Wheeler, Executive Director of Conserve Wildlife New Jersey, to explain.
Hey, David, thanks so much for your time. Let's start with the cicadas. What's going to happen this year?
So this is for certain parts of New Jersey, this is that year that every 17-year cycle, and Brood 10, or as it's spelled out, Brood X, which just sounds like something from a sci-fi movie, is emerging after 16 years underground. And so this 17th year will get in those certain areas, which are kind of dispersed around the state. It's not necessarily one block that you might imagine. You'll get cicadas emerging in what we expect will be very large numbers later in May. And in doing so, they certainly make their presence known through their very loud calls of the males who are attracting females that way.
How many are we talking about? Are we talking about plague-like numbers? Are we talking about blocking out the sun? How many cicadas are we going to see?
Well, putting a number might be tough, but I will say that there is the chance for local huge numbers, where in very certain smaller areas where you get a ton, and maybe in other places, spread out a bit, not nearly as impactful. It's always tough to predict in advance, other than we know the year, but as to the exact numbers, that is so variable. But I will say it's probably going to be certain places where the sound will be deafening, and where, for a few weeks, people might get a little annoyed in certain places. Hopefully not too much.
So annoying to us, to our species, but to other species, this is like a delicacy. This is a smorgasbord.
Exactly. Yeah. For people, I mean, we hear the sound, which is about 100 decibels. It's the equivalent of a jackhammer or a Harley Davidson. For wildlife, though, a range of wildlife, this is basically the dinner bell tolling and calling them in. And for these species, which range dramatically, everything from birds to snakes to mammals, this is the equivalent of a fast food buffet. And if from a wildlife perspective, cicadas are easy to access. They're defenseless, basically. Their only defense is in their large numbers. So individual ones are more or less defenseless, and they're packed with protein and fat. So in many ways, they really are like cicada McNuggets for wildlife species.
Well, specifically, when you talk about snakes, I know from reading an article that you were quoted in, there's 2 venomous snakes in New Jersey. Do they both like cicadas?
Rattlesnakes have been less associated with them, but like I would say any snake that comes across a cicada would not hesitate to enjoy that meal. Copperheads, though, have been shown in many places over time to be particularly attracted to them, and there's not necessarily an exact factor as to why copperheads more than other snakes, and rather it's simply that in many cases copperheads have just been found really dining on cicadas, and I think it's more noteworthy because copperheads are otherwise so reclusive. They're hard to see typically. First of all, copperheads are found only in the northern reaches of the state, from the Palisades west along the New York border, and then down along the Delaware as far south as parts of Mercer County. But they prefer wild habitat. They're not looking to live in downtown areas. So they want more rugged type habitat, wooded areas. So it's not like everybody needs to worry about stepping out into their yard and encountering a copperhead just because cicadas are on. But if you live in the area where both the cicadas are emerging and the copperheads are found, and you are in that kind of a more rugged, remote type of habitat, you do want to be you want to be aware that copperheads could be out there, particularly at night, where you'd be more likely to not see one if you're wandering about in a wooded area. So just, if you did go out at night for whatever reason, keep a flashlight handy and just watch where you step if you live in that area.
Can't help noticing the bobcat over your shoulder. Do we have bobcats in New Jersey?
We do, and bobcats are also found in northern New Jersey. They are a species that was believed to be lost from the state back in the 60s. It turned out a few had hung on, and there was also a small reintroduction in the late 70s and early 80s. And in recent decades, they've made a nice comeback. They're still nearly impossible to see in the wild. Even hikers and hunters and people who spend years out in the wild in bobcat habitat rarely, if ever, will come across one. But they're out there and they're doing well. And they're our only wildcat that we still have in New Jersey, and really a symbol of the wilderness. And one of the exciting things about New Jersey is it's not a state you typically associate with nature and wildlife. And yet, even in this most densely populated small state, we have wildlife, great stories like you mentioned with the bald eagle recovering, the peregrine falcon, fastest animal on earth, thriving here in New Jersey, the osprey, again, you can't miss it along the coast this time of year. So there's some great stories. And unfortunately, I know the copperhead is not one of those cuddly creatures that people want to champion, but our organization works to protect all of the at-risk species. So I understand that might not be shared everywhere.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
David Wheeler from Conserve Wildlife New Jersey. Still to come on Jersey Matters, making a profit and doing some good at the same time. We'll tell you how next. Welcome back to Jersey Matters. Opportunity zones are set up in economically distressed areas of New Jersey to give tax incentives and hopefully attract investors. But what if the investors don't come? That's where Bob Hutchins, founder and CEO of Elevaz Impact Capital, comes in.
Bob, thanks so much for doing this. You have an interesting business model in that you're a for-profit company that is doing some work that normally nonprofits would do. But so you have companies that are in it for a profit, but get to leave with a good conscience. Explain what you're doing.
Right. We're doing real impact investing here in New Jersey. And the interesting part about our model is that we are a true partnership with New Jersey Community Capital, the largest community development financing institution in New Jersey. Essentially, a CDFI is a not-for-profit bank that invests in distressed communities. And with regards to New Jersey Community Capital, they've been doing it 34 years successfully here in New Jersey.
Well, let me stop you there. Why do they need you then? If they've been doing it successfully as a non-for-profit, why do they have to bring in a company that does it for-profit?
Great question, Larry. And this is really the premise for the beginning of Elevaz Impact Capital. My experience has shown over the last 30 years working in the nonprofit sector, in public accounting, consulting, and entrepreneurship, both for-profit and social entrepreneurship, that nonprofits that are mission-driven, have excellent human capital, expertise, technical abilities, but they're underfunded. Our mission is to build sustainable communities by providing the asset class for private sector capital to confidently invest in impact projects, and this is high impact projects, that create dignified, affordable homes and decent work for community members. Professor Michael Porter has been talking about shared values investing for decades.
Where's he from, Professor Porter?
Harvard. He's the father of strategic planning and one of those thought leaders that I've followed for decades. His work on shared values investing was really very important to me. And so when I started Elevaz Impact Capital, we started it based truly on his theories that capital should go to where society needs it the most.
Let's talk about some specific projects. I know you have one project you're very proud of in Newark right now and another one in Trenton.
Thank you, Larry. Yeah, we love the Newark project, not only because it's our firstborn, but it's so critically important coming out of this pandemic. It's the repurpose and renovation of the old St. Michael's Hospital. It's being repurposed into three floors of workforce housing, which will provide very nice quality, affordable housing for our essential workers, nurses,
sure,
hospital workers, supply chain workers, and the people who protected us, fed us, and took care of us during this past 12 months. The bottom two floors, which are going to be much more sexy, are going to be made up of a glass blowing factory, which will train the youth in the neighborhood on the trade of glass blowing, have educational classes, we'll have artist studios. It sits on the corner of the Arts District in Newark.
Are you looking for more projects and or investors?
We're looking for investors, yes, and we're looking at projects. There's a lot of projects out there, a lot of worthwhile projects.
Is there a tax benefit to this?
The tax benefits are terrific. In our Fund 3, the Opportunity Zone Fund, you get to defer. Let me use an example, if I might. I paid $100,000 for stock. I sold it for $1 million. If I paid the federal and state capital gains tax, it would be about a third. So I would pay $300,000 in taxes and I would have $700,000 left. If I took that $900 and I reinvested it into an opportunity fund, I defer payment on the capital gain of $900,000 until I file my 2026 tax return. And even at that, the time value of money, of course, is valuable. You're investing the additional $300,000 during that period of time. But even at that, when I file my 2026 tax return, I get a 10% discount on the gain that I recognize. So instead of paying tax on 900,000, I pay tax on 810,000.
So you're talking about a couple $100,000 you could save.
Oh yeah, and this is the beautiful part though. At the end of 10 years, if my 900,000 grows to be $1,900,000, at the end of the term of the fund, and we liquidate the fund, the $1 million profit to me is completely tax-free, federal and state.
Robert Hutchins, founder and CEO of Elevaz Impact Capital. Still to come on Jersey Matters.
So these here are chicken nuggets, but they're not for me. They're actually for my new friend here, Riley. Coming up next, we'll tell you what this food truck here is all about.
Raise your hand up high if you are sick and tired of the pattern that we have been stuck in. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of you raising your hand. Now you can put it down because I got some good news for you. That pattern is finally going to be easing over the weekend, going into the new week coming up. We got generally dry weather with us, but we do have a chance of a few scattered showers at Saturday night into early Sunday morning. And I think what I really want to highlight here is the fact that sustainable warm temperatures are on the horizon, waiting in the wings for us. Late April, early May, just a warmer pattern as our teleconnections shift up a bit, and I think a lot of you are going to be very happy about that. So here's this brief wet weather maker coming through out of here by Sunday mid to late morning. High pressure builds in, and we're really looking at a nice week ahead, and you can see that in your 7-day forecast. Upper 60s on Monday, low to mid 70s, even upper 70s possible on your Thursday. No big wet weather makers. For Jersey Matters, I'm meteorologist Nor'easter Nick.
Welcome back to Jersey Matters. Everybody's heard of food trucks, right? You've probably eaten at one. But have you ever heard of a food truck for a dog? Jersey Matters' Jennifer Marin found one started by a veteran, and he told her the business hits really close to home. Jennifer.
The owner of this food truck for dogs isn't just an entrepreneur. No, he's a U.S. veteran as well. And he tells me that the reason he started this business is because his dogs helped save his life. U.S. Navy veteran Ron Holloway served his country for 8 years. But like other veterans, his return to everyday life brought challenges.
I was hyper aware, super anxious, bouts of, depression. And I just was, I was in a different place. I was in a dark place.
His wife, Solo Holloway, felt helpless.
I cried a lot, because it's painful to see your husband go through that.
To help bring some joy back into their home, the Holloways expanded their family, and Solo caught a glimpse of a happier Ron.
When we got the dogs, I seen a huge difference in how he acted, and the dogs truly helped him. He would just be rolling on the floor with them, and I just saw pure joy come to him.
My dogs helped me deal with a lot of my issues, and so my wife, her being the crazy dog mom that she is, she said, well, if these little dudes are helping my husband out so much, I want to make sure they live forever.
Solo, who has a scientific background, began researching healthy diets for dogs and started making organic meals for them from scratch.
One thing led to another, and Wolf Bowl was born.
Now they spend their days traveling throughout New York City and New Jersey in their food truck, serving human-like chicken nuggets, sweet potato fries, and more.
Sit, Nora. Ready?
To man's best friend.
You can take her out, get her treats, have a good time, and also give her something that's going to be good for her and help her live a healthy life is just all you could ask for, really, is to have a happy, healthy dog.
Our truck, I want to say, is not just a truck. We also educate. There's nowhere else where you can go for treats and they give you advice on what to feed your dog, on what's good for your dog. Because they actually don't care, and we truly care about that.
But the journey to Wolf Bowls hasn't been easy. When the Holloways first tried to launch their business, they invested all of their savings into a contractor who never finished the project.
We've essentially paid for this operation twice. And it's been hard, because you're a veteran, you come out, you think you can trust people, and that wasn't the case.
Then the pandemic halted their business, but they still persevered.
People that tell us, with all the madness, the divisiveness, you guys have been a bright spot.
You're into it?
So those are the things that push us. and that brighten up our day when we're looking at our bank account in the red. Those are the things that keep us going.
Ron started this GoFundMe to keep his dream going. He wants to raise $50,000. If you're interested in helping him keep his food truck alive, you can head over to the page. The name is Keep Wolf Bowl Food Trucks for Dogs Alive. We're now reporting in Hoboken for Jersey Matters. I'm Jennifer Marin.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. My commentary is next. The far-left radical progressive wing of the Democratic Party is like your crazy aunt at the Thanksgiving table. She's loud, she's tough to ignore, but everyone puts up with her outrageous outburst because she's family. Now, just imagine dozens of those crazy gender nonspecific individuals in Congress, supported by millions of like-crazy people on social media. And there you've got the radical progressive wing of the Democratic Party.
We are here today because the United States Supreme Court is broken. It is out of balance, and it needs to be fixed.
That's Democratic Senator Edward Markey from Massachusetts, one of the most liberal members of Congress, promoting legislation that would add 4 justices to the Supreme Court, expanding the court from 9 justices to 13. And that's because 6 of the justices were nominated by Republican presidents, only 3 by Democratic presidents, and that's why the number 4 is important here. It is a purely political move that gives the Democrats the majority of nominated justices. The Democrats are still very upset that President Donald Trump was able to nominate 3 Supreme Court justices in just 1 term, and they firmly believe that 2 of those seats were stolen from them. On February 13th, 2016, conservative Justice Antonin Scalia died just 9 months before Election Day. President Obama announced Merrick Garland as his nominee a little over a month later on March 16th.
I have fulfilled my constitutional duty. Now it's time for the Senate to do theirs.
But the Republicans controlled the Senate, and then Majority Leader Mitch McConnell refused to even consider the nomination, quoting a very powerful Democratic name, Joe Biden, who was then vice president.
Let me remind colleagues of what Vice President Biden said when he was chairman of the Judiciary Committee here in the Senate. Here's what he said. It would be our pragmatic conclusion that once the political season is underway, and it is, action on a Supreme Court nomination must be put off until after the election campaign is over.
It was a strong argument, but then 4 years later, fate offered McConnell a truth test. Liberal Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg died on September 18th, 2020, less than 2 months before Election Day. And this time, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said he would do everything he could to quickly confirm President Trump's nominee.
But do you understand why many Americans view this as a double standard?
I can only repeat that we have an obligation under the Constitution, should we choose to take advantage of it, to fill the vacancy, and I assure you that's very likely to happen.
It did happen. Conservative Justice Amy Coney Barrett was confirmed on October 26, just 5 weeks after the death of Justice Ginsburg. So that's why Democrats are so upset and now want to add 4 seats to right what they believed was an egregious wrong. Yes, Mitch McConnell was exposed as a hypocrite. Just like fate exposed Senator Markey and the other Democrats who want to expand the court right now to 13, even though they were fine with 9 back in 2016. Hypocrisy is one of the few things that is truly bipartisan. The Supreme Court has had 9 justices since 1869, and the last president who tried to change that was Democrat Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who tried to add 6 seats in 1937. It didn't go well for him. The move was seen as a power grab by the American public, and Roosevelt was accused of trying to control the Supreme Court and thus become a dictator. Even Democrats were against the plan. Over 50 years later, it was still considered a bad idea.
But it was a bonehead idea. It was a terrible, terrible mistake to make, and it put in question, for an entire decade, the independence of the most significant body, including the Congress, in my view, the most significant body in this country, the Supreme Court of the United States of America.
That was Senator Joe Biden in 1993 on the Senate Judiciary Committee. Now, President Biden is at least willing to consider the option of court packing. He signed an executive order that sets up a bipartisan commission to study Supreme Court reform.
Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now.
Are you gonna pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't want
you're a
to answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question.
Republicans say Biden was hiding his true intentions because he knows that court packing is very unpopular with the public and could have cost him the election. Polls have consistently shown that Americans overwhelmingly hate the idea.
I would not get into court packing. We had 3 justices. Next time around, we lose control. They had 3 justices. We began to lose any credibility for the court has at all.
So yes, Biden became evasive, but not to hide his true intentions from the rest of us, from the American people, but from the crazy aunt at the Thanksgiving table, the far left wing of the Democratic Party, because they are loud, they are powerful, and they have an even louder and passionate following. They have been known to primary Democratic candidates who don't agree with them. So what that President Biden put together a commission to study court reform? Critics are reading the wrong thing into this. Commissions are where ideas go to die. He's placating the far left by acting like he's doing something when he's actually doing nothing. And as for the court packing legislation that Senator Markey and his liberal boy band want to pass, Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi won't even consider it.
In answer to your question, I have no plans to bring it to the floor, no.
The moderate hiding deep inside President Joe Biden is taking a passive-aggressive stand against the radical left of his own party. Trust me on this, court packing is never going to happen, no matter how much the crazies at the family table might want it. I'm Larry Mendte. We'll talk again soon.